Now I invite Ambassador Hussain Haqqani to share his thoughts with the audience.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Jeffrey, Jahara, ladies and gentlemen. Khalid Hasan and I were friends for 20 years. And although there are many people here to whom I'm very close, I must say that over the last several years, he was my closest friend in this city. I spoke to him every day. And when I moved to Boston, in classic Khalid Hasan humor, he started referring to Boston as Boston Sharif. Because in the old days, people from Delhi used to move to Ajmer Sharif for higher attainment of religious knowledge or spirituality. So he would always call me up and say, what does the sage of Boston Sharif have to say today? He and I, of course, agreed, disagreed, shared many passions, our love of Urdu poetry. Of course, we had two major disagreements of a non-political nature. One about the importance of cricket. I did not have any love for cricket, and he had enormous love for cricket. And of course, in the end, I finally took refuge behind a political argument to justify why I'm not interested in cricket. And I said anything that produces Imran Khan can't be all that great. And he had a great chuckle out of it. The other thing that we disagreed about was the benefits of Scotch. He being an advocate of those, and me having reservations about the utility of that particular human invention. On political issues, our strongest disagreement took place last year, not last year, but in 2007, when the Pakistani media went into a frenzy. Every progressive in Pakistan started talking about the so-called deal between General Musharraf and Shaheed Muhtarama Benazir Bhutto, and I was often accused as being one of those who was working towards the deal, and he was, of course, totally under the influence of those who thought that this deal would be a bad idea. So I remember once I had taken my son, my teenage son, to the dentist in Boston, and he called and he was rather upset because his and my friend Afzal Khan had called him and told him how the PPP was totally finished and the progressive forces in Pakistan were totally eliminated now because BB was going ahead with the deal. And I said, Khalid bhai, you are ill-informed. Voices were raised a little bit, his more than mine, I must say. And at the end of it all, he finally said, where are you? I said, actually, I am in the waiting room of my son's dentist. He has an orthodontist appointment. And then he had a great laugh and he said, oh God, you and I have been having this argument within hearing reach of the nurse. I said, absolutely. And he said, I hope she's not very attractive because obviously this loud talking Pakistani couldn't have made a very good impression on her. So I said, as far as I'm concerned, Khalid bhai, I try to make a good impression even on people who are not particularly good looking. And he said, that's the disagreement between you and me. I appreciate aesthetics a little bit more than you, although you probably lie on this score. Khalid Hasan, of course, when he wrote Benazir Bhutto's obituary, he started it with the sentence, if Benazir Bhutto could be summed up in one word, it was kind. So I called him up and I said, how would you describe me in your obituary of me? And he said, Hussain bhai, you'll probably be writing my obituary long before I'll be writing yours. So we had, again, back and forth, and we joked about what would be the one word to describe each other. And I said, Khalid bhai, I think the word that would describe you would be civil. You were always civil. And he said, the one word that would describe you would be tolerant. Because I must confess that you have tolerated a lot more, and then he used a four-letter word, not a very harsh one, beginning with an S. and said that you have tolerated a lot more from our people and some of your colleagues and friends, which of course was then, I discovered, and today I have discovered the fourth part of it. I discovered 3 parts of it from other people. 3 different columnists who had been having a constant go at me since I became ambassador ended up forwarding me emails which Khalid Hasan had never sent me. He did it on his own. He actually took them on and said, you have been saying this, you know this to be untrue, and this basically shows that your cause trumps over your commitment to truth. And now I'm glad to say that those 3 columnists have stopped their campaigns about me, but that's a minor personal gain. It's a bigger loss that Khalid is gone. But his argument was very simple. His argument was that journalists who adopt causes should not let that cause trump the need for them to be honest and truthful. And he said that this is a particularly Pakistani affliction. This was, in the last days we used to talk about quote-unquote Pakistani afflictions. There's a kind of a cultural discussion about many things. So he would say, you know, people in Pakistani government become pompous. So every time he would think that there was even the slightest hint of me taking my job too seriously, I would get an email saying, sort of, it would always be a couplet or a sher from someone reminding me to keep my feet on ground. And at the same time, we would discuss other people, and he would always say that this is a major problem, that sometimes people take their causes more seriously than people. If they really understood, then they would understand. For example, he said people who were nasty about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto did not understand the good about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And then we had a lot of comparisons. And in the last days, he used to come to the embassy residence. I have studied there. We never sat in the drawing room. We sat in the study, usually in the evenings, looking around at books, etc. And he would say, what do you think makes great nations? And I said, maybe what makes a great nation is a feeling of nationhood. And he said, why don't you think we have it? And we would have a discussion, a philosophical discussion. And in the philosophical discussion came this important point, that great nations are built by people who disagree but do not abuse each other. Great nations are built by the John Adams and the Thomas Jeffersons who disagree and fight. Aaron Burrs and Alexander Hamiltons who end up having a duel. Of course, in that particular case it went wrong, but that's a different matter. People who can disagree and yet respect and love each other.